about ourselves in a different way. We can't just simply be a national university that's only turning out students, and the students graduate and what further, right? So we embarked upon then on the vision to sort of become also a research intensive university. And that's essentially, what I have on my performance agreement. But not only do we want to be a research intensive university and count our publications and how many grants we can get and what we can bring into the university, but we also want to be locally relevant and locally engaged. And this is where we started looking at what is it that we as a university bring. And this was then perfect. So under the Harambee Prosperity Plan, there's the Southern Corridor development to build Namibia as a hub of green hydrogen production and utilization. And in that, we looked at the plans that government had, and essentially it is to set up a desalination plant. And when I asked across UNAM, how many researchers do we have in desalination? A number of them put up their hands because we already have a successful desalination pilot plant at our campus in Henties Bay. Then I asked, okay, so do we have, how much expertise do we have in renewable energy, but in solar? And again, people put up their hand. And by the way, we are setting up a solar photovoltaic testing lab as well. And then a number of researchers put up their hand, and we had some projects to show also at UNAM. And then I asked, okay, so what do we have in, in wind energy? Again, number of people put up their hand and said, check. Then I said, okay, electrolysis. Then people said, yes, we are here, and so on and so forth. And then I looked at the plans that they had and I said, okay, seems as if we have all of the expertise in UNAM, right? Who can assist us in sort of, assisting government in their endeavors. The next thing that we looked at is we looked at, what are the offtake markets that they are, for instance, looking at. And we saw that with the port development, they were also earmarking some agricultural projects for the offtake of green ammonia as fertilizer. And again, we looked around and we saw, okay, Nectareal Dam, UNAM has a southern campus. We then looked around and we saw that in Roshpina, with the Roshpina mine, we were already having engagements. And okay, and the next one was that, in Lüderitz, we were also starting with some agricultural projects, and then obviously we're also in Oranienburg. We're even doing rice plantations. And we said, okay, check, check, check. We seem to have, capacity in all of these areas. There's another area though. You see the Springbok and the Dolphin and Springbok sites were going out on the RFP, right? And that was awarded to Hyphen. But there are a host of pilot projects going up. Some of them are going to be developed in Walfish Bay and in Arundus. And then when we looked at what UNAM has, we could check those boxes as well, that we could give, sort of R&D assistance. Okay, so that's sort of our story where we then saw, okay, UNAM does indeed have capacity. Okay, so essentially, this slide is just, if you can see it, it's just explaining then all of the necessities that we have. Remember the desalination, the solar, the wind, electrolysis, etc. And then we're looking at offtake markets. We will come back to this slide in a bit, and Dr. Shapura will speak about all of the projects that we're embarking upon and how exactly does it fit in. Okay, so this National Green Hydrogen Initiative promises to create new industries and jobs with potential immense environmental, educational, economic, and social impacts for Namibia. It requires skills across different strata, requires R&D facilities and expertise. It requires new businesses across the value chain. That's correct, right? So then, as I said already, we looked then at, what we had. We found that we had indeed vast and diverse specialization areas within each one of those areas at UNAM. We have multiple campuses spread across Namibia, high student numbers, and we have a skilled and specialized academic complement and a committed leadership. And so we then looked at, okay, what do we need? We definitely need to provide R&D services, within the pilot projects that are coming up, as well as in the eventual projects. We have to capacitate a specialized workforce because we are not ready, to be frank, in Namibia. There's a high skills deficit that we are facing for this new economy. And we feel that if we don't fill it, then who else is going to fill it, right? So we have to come on board for this. And then, of course, small businesses, new types of small businesses that are going to develop across this value chain will be needed within Namibia. Otherwise, we will see an influx, of businesses being set up in Namibia to provide those services where we are failing. So we then thought, okay, so UNAM alone, we might think that we can do it alone, but we can't. And we really wanted to be a national endeavor. So we actually invited NAST on board because NAST also has very particular specialized skills that we would need for this new economy. And then, of course, we have other national partners as well, such as the Green Hydrogen Private Association. We also have like the NAM Waters and the NAM Powers, etc. So it takes all of us to make this happen. This is just a little bit of the capacity that I was saying. UNAM has approximately 30,000 students. Of those, about 7% are masters and PhD. 1,600 academic staff, so those become our researchers. Total of 2,500 staff, 4 faculties, 12 campuses, and 3 research centers. We have 12 campuses spread across Namibia. Now, many of you sitting in the audience might know about that, but elsewhere, people don't know about it. And once on Twitter, Africa Facts tweeted that I think University of Pretoria had an X amount of campuses and said that was the highest. And then I just put up this slide and I said, this is what we have, boom, and that was way more. Anyways, but we also need to make it work, right? It doesn't help to just say you have campuses and not make it work. So these campuses essentially means that we can provide services where it is best needed, as well as exchange some of the stuff between the various places. So since June 2021, we then started looking at the 70 researchers who had put up their hands and said, yes, we are in some or other area of green hydrogen. And they said we have active projects as well. We have students in that. We would like to have more students, but we have students in that. We have a master's in renewable energies. We have these type of degrees. And we put them all together and we said, okay, so what do we do? They came up with about 14 projects, different projects in those specific areas. And then we said, okay, so imagine, and this is our dream. This, what I'm explaining right now, is the dream. We want to set up an institute as a distributed science and technology park. In other words, it will have centers in different places. But we would like to have state-of-the-art infrastructure with fully equipped laboratories, experimental R&D stations, private sector and government representative offices, an entrepreneurship and startup incubation center, a training center, and wellness facilities. This was the dream that we built. It's, it's still pie in the sky, but we're working on it. And then, of course, the staffing, already we have the 70 researchers along with their students. Plus, we have researchers from NUST who have joined us. And then we do this exchange with national and international specialists and experts. And those are not necessarily just from partner universities. So at the moment, we're looking at partner universities just about everywhere where we see where there are green hydrogen sort of specializations being offered. And then we connect to them because we would like to have that exchange going. And so this has been happening quite a bit, especially in the last half of the year, that we had set up those partnerships with academia. And then also, we are also looking at private sector, both national and international, to look at what expertise we have to sort of make sure that we build this. And then, of course, we envisage to have just a lot of visiting and exchange scholars. And of course, usually we have the postdocs with the postgraduate students, along with government and industry seconded experts. One little thing about one of our campuses, the campus in Henties Bay is actually a fully sort of a research campus, right? So it has full-time researchers, just like we have at one of our other research centers, also about 23 full-time researchers with diverse skills. So they don't really teach, all that they do is research. And these are the type of people whom we're relying on as well to bring in and do a lot of exchanges. So we would like to have close collaboration, of course, and this is what I was talking about before. We've concluded some agreements and we are starting to map out some plans with some of the partners in industry, both here and abroad. And then we're also looking at making those connections with government ministries. So this is what we have envisioned what it looks like. We've divided up the Research Institute into 6 distinct centers. And one center is the Center for Clean Hydrogen Production. Don't kill me yet over the clean, the word clean. But we decided on clean, and Dr. Shifuda can explain why we decided on that. And then Center for Hydrogen Storage, New Materials and Delivery, then a Center for Hydrogen Fuel Cell Technology for mobility applications, a Center for Hydrogen Energy Use Economics, Law, Environment, and Society. We also have a Center for Capacity Building, Competence and Standards. That's the one that we are calling the Training Center, because in addition to relooking all of our postgraduate programs this year to see what are the new specializations in green hydrogen that we need to cater for, because we're busy with an overhaul over those programs, we are also looking at upskilling and reskilling. We have a lot of engineers right now on the streets, right? And what are we going to do, right? So if we have all of the engineers, why can't we reskill them very quickly? So this is, I took the Dean of Engineering for UNAM in December, and we went to, to some of the mines and to some of the sites where the green hydrogen activities are being planned. And this was one of the things that was being expressed, that we need to start with our engineers, on the upskilling and reskilling. But that's not where it stops. Remember that we need different skills at different layers, right? You need your operators, you need sort of courses in safety and handling. So it's a variety of skills. So we're looking at different partners, as to what type of skills do we need. And sometimes the folks interested in, setting up a pilot plant here, when they come to us and they have a discussion with us, they usually come and they say, I need X, Y, Z skills. Now, of course, if you don't have them, we need to train them, right? And then usually they can also bring some experts if we don't have the experts, and we can do the training together. Then we have the final one is a Center for Digital
and emerging technologies. Within the green hydrogen sphere, there's a lot of technologies that are being used, but I mean, that's already in use, right? That we don't need to reinvent the wheel. However, it is still very costly to produce green hydrogen. The other thing is also that we are also looking at sort of new technologies that are coming up. In the last 2 months or so, most of our discussions were with universities that had like spin-off companies or projects where they had actually come up with new technologies, and they are asking us, could you, help us in testing this, the transferability, as well as seeing whether we could make new enhancements to it. And of course, the digital technologies is also very important. Think about the blockchain use within green hydrogen. It has an immense role. And in fact, there's a big center being set up by Siemens just on blockchain technologies. So there's certainly a lot that, where we could get involved, etc. And then, of course, for us, very important is the formulation of enabling policies, end-use and environmental sustainability options for widespread hydrogen energy usage. One of the things that we're looking at is we're looking at not only the international markets, but we're also looking at what does it look like, domestically? How can we use it, etc. So we have some partners who are coming on board and saying, we want to test, running trucks on hydrogen, right, within Namibia, because their technology work already, their trucks are running on that, but we need to look at the context and environmental specific issues. And I don't need to tell this audience that legislation and regulation is one of the major issues that we really need to look at. So now I will hand over to Dr. Shifuda. Dr. Natangwe Shifuda is one of the researchers within the Green Hydrogen Research Institute. He's standing in, he's doubling up as my technical sidekick because the regular one who deputizes me is unfortunately not here tonight. So Dr. Shifuda will be taking it further, talking about a little bit more about our centers and then also about our projects. Thank you.
Thank you very much, PVC, for the nice introduction about the Green Hydrogen Research Institute. For those who are coming, my name is Natangwe Shifuda, and I'm very happy to see you and let's discuss about this energy. Before I dive deep in the whole green hydrogen value chain, maybe I just want to share a little bit about some facts about hydrogen from chemistry, just basic ones. Hydrogen is the first element in the periodic table. The atomic number is 1. It's the lightest element. Whose density is 1 × 10⁻⁵ kg per meter cubic. Very, very light. It's colorless. We don't expect to see hydrogen with our eyes. It's odorless. We cannot smell it. That's why this element is very complicated to handle. It's a gas. To be liquefied, it must be chilled to -250 degrees. So that needs quite a lot of energy. Right. So at UNAM, so we are embracing the call from the president, whereby we are talking about carbon neutrality. That's what the PVC has just spoken. And we come up with 14 projects. And these 14 projects, we have researchers who are working in this project. This is a national institute, and we welcome all researchers all over the world. If you are here and you see a project named here and you are interested, please contact our PVC, and then we can incorporate you in these research groups. So the first project we are looking at is green hydrogen production technologies. So here we are looking at, there are various methods of producing hydrogen, and we are looking at all this value chain. I'm going to unpack it a little bit further. And we are also looking at the expertise in seawater desalination. So at UNAM, we have a desalination plant at Henspy, and we have researchers who are working in this one also. And we also looking at solar and wind power, which is specifically for desalination of water. And we are looking at electrolysis. In this case, we are looking at materials, fabrication of materials, cheap material, because one of the problems that hydrogen, green hydrogen has not taken over as for now, it was that electrolysis has been very expensive. The materials for producing electrolyzers have been expensive. So the candidate for an electrolyzer was platinum back then. Platinum is a very expensive metal. So the reason why green hydrogen is becoming cheaper recently is because the world has seen new materials that can be very cheap and competitive with the price of oil and gas. And also the research should continue so that it can even be more cheaper. So that is the research we are doing in this area. And we are also having a project on catalysis. If you have studied chemistry, a catalyst is a chemical that speeds up the rate of a reaction. So we are looking at how can we speed up this reaction, whether it's in electrolysis and all these kind of things. And we are having also development of fuel cells. So this is a project that I am leading. It's very close to my heart. In Japan, they are already driving cars on fuel cells. And we are looking to develop one in Namibia together. And new material, we are actually looking at the whole value chain for all the projects. And we are also looking at photovoltaic and the wind electricity generation and storage in hydrogen. And since this, we are working with water, we have also to be careful with our environment. So we have projects in water resources management. And the framework, this one PVC has just already unpacked. And just for us to see what is happening in detail in all the centers, the research areas, so you can see that we are looking at production of hydrogen using wind, solar, geothermal, biomass. So these are all the form of energy that can be used to produce green hydrogen. So we cannot see steam reforming methane here because that one is responsible for emitting much of the carbon dioxide we are having. And it has been a common process for producing hydrogen, but not green. So the green one, we either use renewable energy, which is wind, solar, geothermal, nuclear is also green. It's also green, right? And then, yeah, debatable. Okay, then the next one is storage. Like I said, hydrogen alone is very, very difficult to handle. So we must store it somehow in something. So at the moment, the mature technology to store hydrogen is ammonia, NH3. One hydrogen atom can be bonded to 3 nitrogen atoms. So the current density is very good. The highest one is for methane, which is NH4, but that one has the CH4, that one has the carbon, which we don't want. So basically, ammonia is the mature one at the moment. Although the world is also looking at liquid organic carriers. This is a promising research to store hydrogen, because the problem is, why should we store hydrogen? So if you transport hydrogen here and maybe until Germany, so it changes, so very light can escape. By the time you reach there, the tank is maybe empty or half. So it's like you didn't do any business. So you want to store it so that to be able to transport. Why should we store it? It's a very, very complicated gas. Okay, so in this research, we are also working. And then fuel cell. Maybe in the next few years, the cars we are going to drive, they will not be powered by combustion engines. So they will be powered electric batteries, more mature, but for long haulage truck, it's impossible. Maybe fuel cell is better, but long haulage truck is a little bit difficult because for you to provide the battery that can sufficiently power that truck, which is running 24 hours. You need a big and heavy one, which will reduce now the road. Your capacity of the goods you are carrying will be reduced. So in that case, it's not so matured. So, and also for the fuel cells, the problem is sometimes with renewable energies that the sun is only on during the day. So you want to be able to store or to use this to produce electricity at night. So we can use hydrogen through fuel cells to generate baseload electricity. That's why this research is very important. Of course, in this case, we said for mobility application, but we are planning to extend it for also electricity generation. And then this is the economic part of the green hydrogen. And then you can also see that these are all the chemicals or all the things that can be done by hydrogen. So if you are here and you are a business person, you must look at what can you do with the green hydrogen. So what can you do? What chemicals can you maybe manufacture in this value chain so that you can be able to localize? Because one of the problems that we have been having is to say, how can we localize? How much can we localize? The green hydrogen is produced in Namibia, but maybe you don't want all to be shipped to Europe. So you want some industrialization and value addition in this space. So this is digital. Digital is just to say that technology is should be emerging technologies, like in the case of industrial revolution and fifth industrial revolution, is together with industrialization. So we are looking at all that what is possible, big data, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and all these kind of things. So that is basically what we are looking at. And just to also introduce you, we have a researcher here, Simeon. Oh, he left. Okay, thank you. So for now, time for questions.
So maybe I missed something, but can you explain to me how the practical fabrication of the hydrogen will work? If I walk into your plant, what do I see? And how does it actually work to in the end come up with the hydrogen?
Okay, thank you very much. That's a nice question. So at first, we must, I hope you mean green hydrogen, right? Okay. So at first, we must have renewable assets or renewable energy source, because hydrogen must be generated from, green hydrogen must be generated from water electrolysis. Water is H2O, hydrogen bonded to oxygen. The bond must be broken by using large amount of energy. And that's why we need renewable assets in this space. Once the water has been broken down, hydrogen goes to one electrode, oxygen goes to another electrode in the electrolyzer. And then you can remove the hydrogen through pipes and oxygen on another side. You can use oxygen in the hospital and hydrogen you store it, and wherever you want to take it. If you want to use it immediately, you can use as hydrogen. But if you are transporting it very far, you've got to bond it to something like ammonia so that you can easily handle it. I hope I answered that question.
Explain the uses.
So, yeah, that's a very nice one. So basically, especially in a lot of ships now, ships have converted ship engines. They are using ammonia. So that is mostly the direct one. So once it can be shipped to Europe, most of them are using hydrogen already. So it can work as ammonia. Some may prefer to use hydrogen alone, but ammonia is the best mature at the moment.
Where do you get where do you get the nitrogen then to create the ammonia?
Please
Yeah.
repeat the question for the Zoom.
Okay, the question is saying, where do we get the nitrogen which we are bonding to ammonia? Okay, that's a nice one. Ammonia, the normal air is 78% nitrogen and 21% oxygen and some other gases. So we get nitrogen from the atmosphere. So we use molecular sieves. These are geolite-based materials. So we can filter it from the air, and then through that we can bond it to hydrogen in a reactor in the presence of a catalyst. At the moment, ion catalyst is the favorite one. And then that can be done through Haber-Bosch process. And then we have NH3.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to ask you whether we can have a copy of your presentation. Is that possible? Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Then it looks like the green hydrogen might be the energy source for the future. Do you think that with green hydrogen we can reach the goal of the Paris Climate Agreement, not to increase the temperature more than 1.5 degrees? That's one question. And the other question is actually about ammonia. You said hydrogen can be stored in ammonia, but can it be used as hydrogen? And then we also hear that the ammonia will be used as a fertilizer. So it has to be transferred to a fertilizer. Does it mean there is a completely other kind of industry which might be not so climate friendly? This is it for the moment. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. 3 questions, right?
Yeah.
I hope I will answer them all.
Yeah, it's fine. We could hear on the Zoom.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So the last one is about ammonia for fertilizer. Yes, ammonia is a key feedstock for making fertilizer, nitrate fertilizer. So you can bond it to urea or phosphate, and then you can produce ammonium nitrate or ammonium phosphate and all these kind of things. So these are fertilizers we already use. Basically, in other words, I want to say ammonia has already been produced. Ammonium-based fertilizer has already been produced. So the problem is the hydrogen that has been used has not been green. So it had been maybe gray or blue or brown coming from coal or steam reforming methane. So this is not a new industry. So the industry is on green, which is focused on the renewable part. So, and I think I will now answer the first one and talk about now. Do we think we can achieve the carbon neutrality by 2050? Yes, we hope that is doable. And at the moment we are trying. We think it can work, but I don't have a precise answer. We are just doing research. At the moment, feasibility studies are being done. Even IFM, the winner, is doing feasibility study. And hopefully that can be the case. I think I missed one, didn't get maybe.
But I think that it takes the whole world to sort of reach that goal. And it probably takes the whole world to then, sort of go on to green. And that wouldn't be the only thing. But I think that, if you look at Namibia and at Africa in general, it's about a drop in the ocean. But yes, it goes towards those efforts. But I don't think that we will be there by the time that we think is feasible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for all the information. I think it's very good that we get some more fact and data about this issue, since everybody's talking about it. I think not everybody here in Namibia knows much about green hydrogen. So I appreciate this very much. My question is rather not that technical, rather more regarding the operational issues. Is there a timetable, or easier to put, how long would it take from the development of this project up to the production, or when we will have the first drop of green hydrogen here in Namibia? Is there any plan, or in what timetable we have to imagine this project? Thank you.
Can I just ask, is there somebody from Hyphen here? No? Okay, because that would be ideally the persons to answer this, since they are the bid winners of the first two sites. And according to their timetable, by 2026 is when they will be in full production. And the timetable up to then is that they have a year of feasibility studies, and then they will essentially start, towards with the construction of their plant. Now they have done a lot of statistics on, on the path towards 2026 and what is going to happen. Amongst others, that they will be endeavoring to employ 90% Namibians of their, staff would be Namibians, and a certain percentage, I speak under correction, but I think it's 20%, would be youth. And then they are going on and they are giving us statistics on what exactly they are going to do. Sorry, I was just looking up essentially what is contained within, within what they said they would be doing. So by 2026, we will see the creation of 2 gigawatts of renewable electricity generation capacity to produce green hydrogen for conversion into green ammonia. And then, of course, they are giving all of the cost as well of how much we're expecting. And that would be an estimated capital cost of 4.4 billion USD. And then they will do also expansion phases in the late 2020s to expand combined renewable generation capacity to 5 gigawatts and 3 gigawatts of electrolyzer capacity, increasing the combined total investment to 9.4 billion US dollars. So those are certainly some of the timelines that they're giving. And the reason why I wanted to sort of look it up to answer that is because looking at our timelines, it feels almost like we are late. It feels almost like, if they want to sort of employ 90% Namibians onto those projects, we then have to make sure that we embark on the skills development for that. And essentially, if you're looking at all of the needs that are being articulated on what we need to do, then this is where it became quite urgent for us to start. Now, the Green Hydrogen Research Institute, I have to do a plug here. We're looking for money and we're looking for expertise, right, as well. And, and if you connect us to, more institutions, but we have been connecting with, because not everything takes money, we have been connecting with academic institutions elsewhere in the world. For instance, in Belgium, in Germany, in the Netherlands, etc. Because we are also looking at, okay, so if you have, for instance, the wind energy plants, I mean, who's going to be manufacturing the turbines? Will we forever be bringing in turbines? It might be more cost effective, but who's going to do the operation and maintenance of those plants? So those are the type of things that we are looking at, and playing into those timelines is what makes it very urgent. On the research, we said that we are already busy on that, but there are some of the companies who are coming in and saying that they would like to start with their pilot plants at the end of February, right? Starting to set that up. Others are asking for mini pilot plants to be set up. So there is certainly somehow a sense of urgency for us to act. Thank you.
Evening. My name is Jorin van Gosla. I'm from NEC. We are one of the largest installers of solar energy in the country. I'm the head of renewable energy. So just on your topic, I think it's a very valid point that the sense of urgency is great, but on the other hand, the targets seem to be very ambitious. So at this stage, if we put all the Namibian companies together that install solar, we could do 100 to 200 megawatts a year. So we are way off the target in terms of reaching 2 megawatts by 2026. So it's something that seems very overambitious to reach with Namibians anyways. So that's just on a side note. My questions were actually on the ozone or on the oxygen that is a byproduct of the hydrogen. So I agree that you can use it in the hospitals, but obviously if you produce hydrogen in the sense of megatons a month or megatons a day, in the end, you will have massive amounts of oxygen that are a byproduct. So those cannot be used in hospitals unless you have like 100 million people needing of oxygen. So you really need to do something else with the oxygen. So that is something that cannot be escaped back into the ozone because it will just create more problems for us. That's the one topic. The other is the infrastructure. So I see Namibia trying to become a hub for green energy or for green hydrogen. That is logical because of our possibilities that we have with the highest radiation levels in the world. But on the other end, we are sitting very far away from all the big markets. So I don't see us to really play that market role that we want to be. So for us, I would say the main off-taker would be South Africa and possibly India, which is close by, but on the other end, to reach Europe and to reach America, which are the big markets, with our transport issues that we already know of. So that I think is something that the government might be a little bit over ambitious about in putting Namibia on the market as the leading country. I mean, we do have the resources in terms of natural resources, but in terms of our location, we might not be ideally positioned for that markets. So just if you could comment on the way I see that maybe the focus is a little bit off to say that we might be the supplier for Europe, while we might actually want to position ourselves more to become the supplier for South Africa and possibly India and one of the markets which are more close to us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I will just comment a little bit on the excess oxygen that you mentioned. Yeah, we are also thinking about, for example, if you use hydrogen in cars, so the byproduct is water vapor. So we have also been thinking about, is this water vapor? Okay, now at the moment, the excess is carbon dioxide. Is this water vapor now, the cars will be emitting water vapor? Is this not greenhouse gas? So we are also careful at that research level. So it's a valid point you mentioned. It's something that we have to look into as to how we can use the oxygen as opposed to just maybe talking about using it in the hospital. If it's really too much, and oxygen is oxygen, it can also be too much oxygen in the atmosphere is not also healthy. So yeah, it's a valid point, I think. Let's go on to.
Yes, and if Dr. Shikuvari is heading sort of our technical team, Dr. Sivai Shikuvari, he used to be the head of the Namibia Energy Institute, but you know, he's always going on about oxygen being a greenhouse gas, and then that's one of his concerns, that you're pushing too much oxygen then in. So we are researching ways to see, of course, I mean, we are relying also on previous research, but also doing some research to see how that would be mitigated or addressed. And then as far as markets is concerned, you are absolutely right. So one of the things that is being looked at is actually to connect to South Africa as an offtake market. Hyphen, for instance, has in their plans, they have all of those railway lines to sort of extend also back into South Africa. But South Africa and in fact SADC is being looked at as sort of one of your big markets. And then with the Lüderitz port deepening, there's, they're looking at how can they then sort of, have that as a route then to reach Europe. But those are some of the valid questions that are there. Thank you.
Sorry, maybe just there's one question I feel that wasn't addressed.
Easy. Mike,
So,
the Zoom, they couldn't hear you.
There was one very interesting question that was not addressed, and I also want to hear the answer about the ambitions. Are we being realistic or being too ambitious about what we are producing and what we aim to produce?
As far as whether it is ambitious, certainly, for some of us who are sitting on the outside rather, it certainly does look very ambitious. And we're questioning it as well. But on the other hand, within the university, I think that's actually an interesting point to sort of have a look, through research, whether that can be achieved. Certainly Hyphen thinks that they can achieve it, right? And so that's why they put in the bid, and that's why they're sort of the winner of those bids. So I think from our side, we can't really answer much on that one. Thank you. Unless I misunderstood. Maybe you want me to comment on something else.
I quickly just wanted to ask the question to the gentleman. You mentioned water electrolysis as a source of hydrogen. Yes. How do you justify that in a country that continuously faces a water crisis?
That's a very nice question. Yeah. So actually, this whole green hydrogen thing may also come with a good solution for water crisis, because the water must be desalinated first, which should come from the sea, right? So this water that has been desalinated, a part of that can be now sent to an electrolyzer, and a part of that can be sent to your house so that you can drink. Of course, some chemicals have to be added, because the water for drinking and the one for electrolysis should be different, right? So this whole value chain, we think in the case of water availability, is going to come with that solution. So I think I answered your question.
Hello, my name is
Sorry,
Lisa
please just move there.
I have a question. I think it's more to Dr. Peters. I'm a bit concerned always when there's one huge company that wins a bid, because that has nothing to do with healthy private enterprise. And I'm particularly concerned then when the board consists of well-connected people who obviously earn huge board fees and will make the product in the end more expensive than need be. So my question is, I think I heard Dr. Peters say that there are other private sector companies as well who want to invest. And if they will all have to undergo such a strenuous bidding process, or are we just looking at direct foreign investment?
They probably shouted at me that I'm not standing center. You're putting me in a difficult position. Sorry, because no, of course, I mean, in this instance, look, I mean, Hyphen got both sides, right? Both sides went out on RFP and they got both sides. However, there are other private companies who are interested in setting up pilot plants and then doing eventual, production as well. There's a second RFP that is going out. I don't have much insights into that, unfortunately. But I did see that it is going to be announced in February. The RFP will be opened up in February. But one approach is also to look at certainly those ones who are approaching us. They are looking at setting up different types of pilots, everywhere. Some of them are coming with their own money, right? And some of them have already secured sort of money from elsewhere. Then we have on academic partners, for instance, on some of the universities who have done research where they are now at a stage where they want to test it in a different environment. With those ones, we are doing joint grants, etc. But as far as the pilot, there's a round for pilot plans. As far as that is concerned, my information is a little bit sketchy on that one. I can only speak to those ones that we have sort of, been talking to and been concluding agreements with, that the Green Hydrogen Research Institute will be there and will be, be doing, be partnering with them. There is already a French company, for instance, busy in Swakopmund. They have started already, and they had reached out to us, for instance, and said to us, look, we need some skilling to be done, and we have some research needs. And so we are also availing already facilities and space for the university and for your students and your researchers to come on board. And we've set aside, X amount for internships because we do need, some students to come on board. So those type of contacts had been made.
Yes, thank you. I would like to ask you a question regarding the efficiency. If you take like 100 units of electricity, you transfer it into hydrogen, you produce ammonium, and then afterwards you use that product to reproduce electricity, how many % of the initial electricity will be lost? This is something I would like to ask you. Thanks.
Yeah, that's a very nice one. Thank you very much. Yeah, so one of the criticism for the green hydrogen value chain has been the efficiency, especially when we are comparing with electric batteries, for electric cars. Now, of course, the efficiency is a question because you must use renewable energy, split the water, transport, and then use. So it's a question that we must look at. Of course, I don't have perfect data, but it's an issue that we have to look at as a world if we are to embrace this new energy ecosystem.
Oh, okay. I have a question. Oh, okay. My question is to say, how much money does the university plan to invest in the green hydrogen research by 2026? And in comparison to other sources of energy like solar energy, what brought you to a conclusion that investing in green hydrogen would be having a high output than investing in solar energy?
I'll take the first one, maybe. So, yeah, why should we invest in green energy? Maybe that's the question, right? So, Prof just spoke about the Paris Agreement, which requires to reduce the carbon dioxide emission. And then that is the basic motive for investing in green hydrogen. So there's a famous quote that says, I forgot now, the Stone Age did not end because there are no stones. So it's just that we have to go green in order to protect our ecosystem. So that is the main focus. Of course, solar energy is part of the green hydrogen value chain. It's part of it because we must use that energy to desalinate or to electrolyze the water.
And I think one of the things that I always pause because we say clean hydrogen production, because one of the things that we must remember that it's going to take a while for us to transition. And very few, while we're getting swept up into this, hype about green hydrogen and what it could mean for our country, as far as the Paris Agreement, but also as far as jobs that are coming in, revenue that's coming in, etc. So the economy, etc. It's also that it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be overnight. That transition period is quite long. We, for instance, recently we visited the University of Edinburgh. Has, for instance, a green hydrogen research institute as well. And, in talking to the researchers there, by the way, some of them are already coming in March, is we realize that that question about the transition, so many things that have to be converted, right? And even if you're thinking about the storage, many things have to happen still. And that seems to be on the silent side if one looks at the narratives out there and the discussions. But this is certainly something that we would like to also, address. You had a question about why is the university investing? Now, the university is really in a peculiar position because the university does not have money, as simple as that. Because government doesn't have money, we're a public funded university. As you know, we got 800 and how much? 71 million, whereas we have a salary bill of, above $1 billion. And so we really work hard to sort of bring in external grants and external funding. Now, for the Green Hydrogen Research Institute, we've obviously also, the first thing that we did was ask the researchers, okay, now you have to write grants, grant proposals, so that we can see how we are going to be funding our operations. The research that they are currently doing was research that they were already doing, right? In the projects that we're having. But we certainly do have a need to bring in now more students, masters and PhD students, and they need to be funded as far as scholarships are concerned. We need equipment, for instance. We've gone to University of Witwatersrand. We've gone to University of Johannesburg, for instance. There is ANU in Australia. So, we've reached out to partner universities, to CSIR in South Africa. In fact, we are sitting now on the CSIR Energy Advisory Board because we needed to ask them, can we use your equipment? Because we don't have equipment because some of it is very expensive. So those sharing agreements we've also made. And as I said, the exchange of staff and students and expertise. We've concluded, for instance, agreements with Siemens Energy. We've concluded agreements with, there's a number of them. And one of the components of those agreements is that, of course, we will provide some R&D. Some of them are saying that we should be providing the skills, development, the materials, the training, and in turn, they are essentially, giving money for the services that is being rendered. In other words, for the training that we do, etc. So that's sort of the model that we're doing. And I can remember that I was asked on a previous occasion when we were fighting the locusts as a university, I was asked, how do you get onto a national project with zero money, right? It was my boss who asked me. And for me, the answer is real simple. If we have national concerns and being a nationally funded university, we have to be locally relevant and regionally relevant and engaged. And we can always, because we're academics, we can always go right for, grants, etc. So I think that there's a plethora of ways to do that. And yes, we did write, for instance, a proposal for seed funding for the research institute, because one of my problems is that we're all academics and we all have this as, as an add-on to what we're doing still. Unfortunately, my seed funding proposals didn't pan out, but that's not where we stop, right? We are continuing. And I have seen, just to deviate for a moment, I have seen, within the Namibian private sector, that there are a number of partners who are very willing to come on board, but you as the university have to also show that you do possess the skills, that you can do the work, etc. But private sector partners have been very willing. Locally, we also had partners coming on board with us and saying, we are going to assist you. Thank you. I was a bit lengthy.
Sorry, Prof. Sorry, Prof. I just wanted to find out the amount of money with the energy output, to say with this amount of money investing in the green hydrogen, and with that same amount of money investing it in the solar energy, for example, what, in terms of the output of the energy itself, what are the considerations?
I think maybe maybe if you come to rephrase it, you want to say, well, there is solar energy, right? And then there is hydrogen energy. These two, they are useful in different spaces.
Yes.
Of course, the solar energy is the production of green hydrogen, but we can also use green hydrogen to generate energy.
Yes.
So in that case, I'm not so sure where the question is.
Yes. Okay, so the question is to say in terms of dollar to energy output, what is the comparison?
Maybe if I can rephrase, I think he's thinking about, we've got the solar energy, and we spend the money to figure out how it best works, how we get the best amount of energy out of it for now. How much money does now need to be invested to get proper green energy out of this hydrogen before it actually becomes profitable? How much funds need to be put in before we can actually gain something out of it?
Yeah, I think the production, depending on the amount of hydrogen you want to produce, then the cost comes. So if for example, Hyphen, they want to produce 300 tons of green hydrogen per annum or something, and they want to invest, is it $70 billion, something like that I heard. So, but I think the value or the production is the cost. So in the case of solar also, depending on the amount of energy you want to produce, so the amount of solar panels you want to elect, so that will also is the cost. So I think that is my viewpoint, maybe. You want to?
No, that's fine.
So in the long run, would you say hydrogen energy would be more profitable, better than solar energy? Not in the sense of environmental green, but in the sense of we don't need to put as much money to gain that energy that we now need for solar energy.
So maybe when we compare hydrogen, we must compare it with fossil fuel-based ones, because hydrogen is a fuel. So maybe we must compare it with diesel and petrol, as to say, to produce hydrogen, how cost competitive will it be to fossil fuel-based ones? Maybe that one is. I think that's the right comparison. So at the moment, the cost of producing hydrogen is green hydrogen. Let me rephrase it: green hydrogen, because for producing gray hydrogen is fine as comparing to fossil-based ones. but the cost of producing green hydrogen at the moment is slightly higher than that of petrol and diesel. But it's gonna be low as the prediction, the Bloomberg prediction are predicting by 2025. So per dollar or per 1 kg, it's going to be around $1.1 or something like that, which is almost same as for fuel, petrol and gas. So that is my observation. Yes.
Just quickly, one question from the viewers here. What is the carbon footprint of 1 cubic meter of green hydrogen, considering the materials used for the plant facilities and continuous maintenance of the plant?
That is very too technical. It will depend on many factors. It will depend on many factors. So too technical at the moment.
Hello. I have two things. One is a comment and the other is a question. The first one is just in terms of your talk. An awful lot of my understanding has come out from the questions, not the talk. So I would just want to suggest to you that maybe I'm just an average Joe in this and I should have been more educated, but I would want to know what is green hydrogen, firstly? How does it compare to traditional hydrogen production methods? What's changed to allow green hydrogen to be produced that wasn't available before? The whole question about water source wasn't mentioned, and that's very important. And the whole chain in terms of ammonia and how we capture it. And what are the problems and challenges which have come out in the questions. And then also the comparison with fossil fuels. All of that stuff, I think, is really important to understand at the beginning before getting into all of this stuff, which is interesting. But for me, I wanted to know much more about the background. So that's the one comment. The other question I have is, I saw a news report about Shell finding a pretty major reserve of oil. How likely is that to derail the whole thing in terms of if you want to get Namibia going in the green way? We know how politicians are a little bit corrupt. Is that going to change things?
Okay, I will answer the first one and Prof will take the last one. Okay, like we said, before we started talking about green, there's been gray, blue, and brown hydrogen. Those are other processes that have been existing. The most one is steam reforming methane. That means that methane is a hydrocarbon which existed already in the space, in the universe, right? And the methane must be reacted with hot water at 1000 degrees Celsius to produce the hydrogen. So that has been more a mature method for producing hydrogen, which is then brown. But some people try to capture the carbon which has been released, then that becomes gray. But the problem with the capturing of carbon is that the equipment that are used to capture and bury the carbon underneath, they are also becoming expensive. That's why people are now moving to green. So, for example, companies like Sasso in South Africa, they are already producing hydrogen, which is from methane and coal. So that has been existing. Of course, hydrogen has already applications that are used in oil refinery, in steel making, and all other industrial applications. The word green is the important one, which is linked to the Paris Agreement, whereby we want net zero emission of carbon. So that is where the difference is. They are all hydrogen, but others are blue, gray, and brown, depending on how they came about. And actually, I think there are two ways to produce green hydrogen. It's just that the other way is not so famous, which is photolysis. That one is used in semiconductors, but it will take a lot of effort to produce large amount of hydrogen from that. So I think water electrolysis is the best one at the moment. And the water must be energized by renewable energy, okay, in order to break the bond into hydrogen and to separate them. Okay? So I hope I answered that one.
You see, maybe it's my fault a little bit because I wasn't quite sure of the audience, and who perhaps have expert knowledge already on this. But so the first time I struggled with this. So for us at the university, the experts kept on telling us, okay, how does it work? So green essentially just means what source are you using for what is the energy source, right? To split the hydrogen. And it's simply green because it's renewable energy. So it's either, in our case, wind and solar. So that is what makes the whole process actually green. And then the thing is that it has to do with water. And like she was asking, there needs to be a hell of a lot of water, right? So where do you get it in a water scarce country? And this is why we're doing desalination, to get the water from the ocean to do the splitting then. Then he wanted me to take the last question, which is a question that I don't quite know how to answer, because it's just broken, the news, and we're not even quite sure yet whether it is really true, because it kind of like says it's still unconfirmed, the reports haven't been studied yet. But remember also that I said that I think that the transition period is going to be long. We can't expect in 5 years that every single thing that needs energy or that needs fuel will be converted already. That the solar and the wind plants will already be pumping electricity back onto our grid. I think that it's going to take a long time. So even if we have, now still the reliance on oil and gas, we can't simply, take a blind look at it and say, no, we're going to ignore it. So I think it's interesting to watch over the next weeks as it unfolds, how that's going to be handled. But I think we can't just switch off and move on to something new.
Sorry about that. I just have 2 questions, and I'm also asking in my capacity as a Namibian. So which countries have we learned from or that have done very well with green hydrogen? And now my head is more going into the economics of it, the benefits for the country. We talked about job creation, but let's just say in the economic sense, it's such a big investment that we are embarking upon. It almost feels as though one put so many eggs into one basket. So I really don't know who's been doing phenomenal with that. That would be interesting to me. And the second question, I don't know if you will be able to answer it, but just how much government will be investing in this area?
Okay, thank you very much.
Chance.
I'll try to answer, and maybe Prof can add also. At the moment in the world, there are few countries that have capacity to produce green hydrogen. Of course, Namibia is one of them, Australia, Chile, Morocco. This is because of their geological location, renewable assets that they have. Australia is already producing hydrogen, green hydrogen, and is the main supplier of green hydrogen to Japan, whereby their buses are already using green hydrogen in their fuel cells, the cars that are being powered by fuel cells. So Australia is the country that one can look at. It's doing very well. Chile is also a little bit ahead, and I learned that Namibia is doing very well in Africa. So South Africa is also, South Africa is also, sorry, I forgot.
How much is government putting into it? I honestly cannot answer you that question, but government has signed, I think 3 bilateral agreements, but one of the sort of the MOUs that was signed last year in August was with Germany, with the German Ministry of Research and Education, and that was it 40,000 40 million, sorry, Kwach, 40 million euros. And I think 741, something like that. Can't remember the figures anymore. Million Namibian dollars. The bulk of that is going into pilot projects. So where there's a co-funding element of pilot projects. Then there's a small amount set aside for scholarships, and then there was a small amount set aside also for feasibilities, for a strategy, a green hydrogen strategy. Then there was also some news coverage on some agreements that were signed, that government had signed with the Belgium government. I don't know what that figure is exactly. And then listening to some of the newscasts, I also learned that there was some agreement signed with France. But what the government portion is to all of those, I don't know.
I would like to ask a question on environment. We hear that the Tsao Kaib National Park is earmarked for the project. And yeah, we hear about 4,000 to 5,000 square kilometers, which will be used for this project. That is a huge area. And I understand that especially there, it has been the former Diamantsberggebiet, that there is a great value on endemic plants, which are not found anywhere else. So will this be taken into consideration? Will this be all destroyed and be a huge industrial area? I want to come back to the ammonia because you didn't really answer that question. Will there be other industry as well, which is really not climate friendly? That's the one issue. And the other issue I'm thinking about is Hyphen. One of the partners is Entertruck, and they want to do the planning, or the investigation, the construction, etc. So can we then still call it a Namibian project? It's my question. And how will, that was asked before, how will Namibia benefit from that? Will we actually first can cover our energy need so that we can do away with our fossil fuel energy? Will it be, you talked about the price, but will it be in practice later affordable for us? What will be the price? You spoke about capacity building that will be done by the university, which is of course was very reassuring. Yeah, this is actually what especially will the Namibian needs be firstly covered before it gets all exported. Thank you.
Okay, I will start and also touch base on that. So maybe regarding the environmental sensitivity of the park. So the bidders, when they submitted their, so when bidders were selected, it was based on what they've submitted, especially considering the sensitivity of the park. So, and one of the points that were in those tick box is the environmental sensitivity, as to see how are we going to work in this area, considering that we are in the national park. So it's one of the key points I think the people have, the technical committee have considered, and maybe that's why Hyphen won, maybe they have a plan, is to make sure that how can they coexist, their project coexist with the existing nature of the park. So, and in the case of ammonia, I just wanted to say that ammonia is already an existing industry. It's just that in this case, it's going to be produced from the green hydrogen. So I'm not so sure it's already existing. We already use ammonia in various, even in cleaning products, is using ammonia. So it's an existing industry. We just want to make sure that when we derive ammonia from through hydrogen, it must be coming from the green part. And the other part, I think Prof can.
I think because it's in the Schwagergebiet and because of the sensitivity, you know, of the endemic sort of fauna and flora in that area, it remains a concern. I know that at the university, and I really wish that they were here now to speak to that. I know that in the university, remember, we have researchers also in, you know, on environmental issues, and they are, for instance, very concerned about that. At this point in time, however, as he says, Hyphen has ticked a box to say that this will be dealt with. What I can say on our side, we can, I mean, those are some of the research we're looking into, but as a university, we can't really answer that question. So then the other question that you asked. Oh yeah, I think, you know, how Namibians will benefit. So the benefit that is sort of sold to us is that 90% of the employees to be employed will be Namibians, right? And 20% will be the youth, and then a certain percentage they have indicated will be contracted, you know, sort of Namibian businesses who will be supplying the services. So that's sort of the value proposition that we're getting from that. Now, of course, there are questions, you know, in my mind, I'm also kind of like thinking, okay, so, you know, how are we going to make sure that each one of the specializations that they have or of the needs for employees is going to be filled? We're looking at, you know, at Lüderitz, little bit Oranienburg, but mostly Lüderitz. And we're thinking of how are the, you know, do we really have all of the people in that area? Or will there be an influx of people migrating from elsewhere there? And then we're thinking of the town councils, you know, will they have all of the resources, adequate resources to sort of sustain everybody who's coming in? I'm reflecting on these questions because these were questions that when we went to survey a little bit of, you know, of what are the needs and whether we could actually do the training there, we were looking at venues, you know, and who to train. And those were some of the questions that we had been getting, right? So there are quite a lot of questions that we will have to solve. But one of the things that we endeavor from our side is precisely that we want to have Namibians benefit. We want to have Namibian businesses benefit. And this is why we're sort of doing what we're doing, you know, on top of everything else that we're doing. So I probably didn't answer all of your concerns that you have, but that was the best I could do.
I just wanted to say that we are, yeah, obviously the presentation was very nice. Thank you. And especially on the UNAM capabilities, I'm very impressed. And I think that you're on the right track there in focusing on this new energy source and as a potential for Namibia. For a funding perspective, have you tried, I would suggest Melissa and Bill Gates Foundation, which have spent $1 billion on the coronavirus, which seems to have impacted that positively, but they might find it more valuable in this future-oriented energy source to decarbonize, to make it a valuable contribution to an institution such as UNAM. Thank you.
Actually, you've just put me on the track again. In the beginning of January, I read that Bill Gates, well, I don't know about Melinda, but Bill Gates himself had said that the new priority area to invest in is green hydrogen. So, and I did not yet get that message through. So thank you so much for that. I think that's a viable place to start.
I just have one last question. Yes, I know perhaps we do not have the exact figures, but looking at jobs, how many jobs are we looking at in this whole project? And particularly when we say 90% Namibians, how many are we looking at to get the benefits from this whole project? Because we keep hearing jobs, but we aren't hearing numbers. We want to hear numbers that can pin us on. Another aspect is when we're looking at the 10%, which will be foreign, foreign experts. The biggest stumble block for foreign experts coming to Namibia is Home Affairs. Is Home Affairs ready to issue work permits and visas to foreign experts who are going to be engaged in this project? Because right now, Home Affairs is not being very helpful. So those are my two questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, obviously, this is only the information that I have from Hyphen, right? So the other pilots are sort of in the making and coming up. So Hyphen says that they will create 15,000 direct jobs during the 4-year construction period of both phases, with a further 3,000 jobs created permanently during the operational phase. And then, of course, they say 90% of these jobs will be filled by Namibians. So that's the promise that they've made. So what is it? Sums is 18,000 jobs. The 10%, all that I can say is that I think that there are engagements with the Ministry of Home Affairs, you know, on this, because there was a study done by there's a Harvard study done on what are the needs in terms of skills for Namibia, right? If we embark on this initiative, and then what is the capacity that we have, and then sort of where are your scarce skills? There was a new report that had come out as well on sort of the skills sector and on those specialist skills. But I think the concern that you are raising with Home Affairs is enjoying attention, but you know, it's more enjoying attention, you know, on the presidency side than on our side as an institute. Thank you.